The regular weekly roundup of new maker products returns for the year with a whole bunch of wireless modules, power control, robotic arms, and some cool video processing boards, all coming from this freshly rebuilt new studio. Kickstarter has a few things this week despite the holidays. If you're into sound, then this Kickstarter might interest you. It's a surround sound Pi hat that provides 8-channel audio out from 6-channel input or via the I2S audio bus. No idea what chipset it uses, but it's capable of up to 192 kHz at 24-bit resolution. This next one is from Down Under. It's another robotic arm controlled via plug-and-play USB. It uses custom cycloid gearboxes and DC brushless servos. It looks quite good, but the information on their campaign page is pretty scant. What I've found out is that it can lift 750 grams max, has 6-axis range of motion, 450mm reach, with a 0.2mm location accuracy. Another robotic arm, but this one is probably the cheapest, most functional one I've seen around, at only $50 US. It's also the second version of one that hit Tindie last year. The updated version is a complete kit designed from the ground up to be used by a 6-year-old. It also comes with an Arduino Nano and Bluetooth board allowing OTA programming via the Arduino IDE or Blockly. It's actually a pretty good kit that would be a great addition to any STEM classroom. If you want to get into ultrasonics, then this kit has everything you need with LCD screen, ultrasonic rangefinder, and an Atmega 328 based board. Comes with a set of pre-programmed modes to start off with, but can also be reprogrammed using the Arduino IDE. Tired of C and Python? Time to change gears and learn how to code in assembler. This is one of those Kickstarters that probably won't be funded, as it's very niche, but it's the only one I've seen of its kind. For those 3D printing people out there, this Kickstarter will upgrade your tired steppers. The kit provides additional features such as higher accuracy, faster prints, lower noise levels, and active position tracking and compensation, eliminating step losses. It can be retrofitted to almost any printer. JeVois, which is French for I see, seems to be the next step in embedded vision. Instead of using a hardware graphics engine, it uses a small standard quad-core SBC 1.3 megapixel camera running OpenMV and communicates to a host device via UART or USB. It has an SD containing a pre-built Linux OS, booting up in under 5 seconds, that of course you can hack around with. The demo videos show off some pretty impressive capabilities, like object detection, augmented reality markers, road or track detection, and eye tracking. This is one nice unit at only $49 for the basic package. A similar board to the Lopi, the Eagle Rocket is a board that contains an ESP8266 and the SIM808 GSM and GPS module. The Kickstarter is also offering a range of other boards with different MCUs, such as the ESP32, Atmega 2560, and Atmega 328P. They all come with onboard LiPo charging, buck converter, and USB to UART. While IndieGoGo seems to be doing its usual thing. The Cube LightStrip is a Wi-Fi controlled RGB LED strip. The idea is that the LightStrip talks directly to the internet and doesn't require any IoT gateway or hub. It integrates with IFTTT or Amazon Alexa, so you can have full control over strips from anywhere automatically or manually. It doesn't say how many LEDs per 1 meter strip, but total illumination is 1400 lumens. Each Wi-Fi adapter can control up to 10 strips. About time, someone posted a joke campaign highlighting the real issue with all these social robots on crowdfunding sites. A lot of these robot campaigns are frauds, like the Chotu. See, it even looks like a trash can, or some sort of medical device that goes ping. CrowdSupply has a few things. Up on pre-launch, there's an open source expandable RGB LED matrix. Wonder how they're going to deal with the power supply issues. Those small header wires don't look big enough when you start to get to long daisy chains. And this is another take on image processing, but using an FPGA instead. Uses a Cyclone 4E FPGA, which should be good enough to do some decent video processing on the HDMI in and out ports. It also has USB, JTAG, SD, and Bluetooth, and compares better than the competition on features and price point. They have also released all source code and hardware schematics. The open source benched power supply has finally gone live. You thought that a power supply was some sort of inert piece of equipment? Not anymore. What makes this so great is that it is a modular, open source, open hardware power supply. What makes it even better is that it contains an Arduino Duo, Ethernet and USB ports, SD slot and EEPROM. It packs all the features you would expect from any decent power supply like current, voltage and power protection, reverse polarity detection, and current balancing with channel coupling. One very nice unit. The Khadas VIM is yet another 64-bit SBC. Wonder why they didn't call it the Khadas Emacs. Oh well. This board contains an AM Logic S905X quad-core Cortex A53, 2GB DDR3, 8 or 16GB eMMC, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, RTC, standard PiGPIO header, Ethernet, HDMI 2.0 supporting 4K video, and HDR10 video processing, all released as open source and open hardware. You can pick one up from GearBest for around $65 currently. Can't wait to get my hands on one of these to test out the claimed use cases. The Banana Pi Router 2 is here. This next version now has a MediaTek quad-core Cortex A7 MCU, clocked at 1.3 GHz, 2GB DDR3, between 8 and 64GB eMMC, 2 SATA, SD, 2 USB 3.0, 1 USB 2.0, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, HDMI, and 5 1GB Ethernet ports. It also sports a mini PCIe interface and an almost compatible PiGPIO header. Hopefully they will have solved their performance issues in this next version. The next version of the OpenMV Cam is available for pre-order. This newer version has the faster Cortex M7 CPU running at 216 MHz and 512K RAM, supporting 640 by 480 grayscale video. It has all the usual USB, SD, SPI, I2C and CAN bus interfaces and GPIOs for controlling stuff. A nice step up from the previous model. There seems to be rumours about a new Orange Pi SBC called the Orange Pi Zero Plus. This one is rumoured to have a Cortex A5 from RDA Electronics, 2GB RAM, 4GB NAND flash, SDIO interfaces, support for eMMC, USB, MIPI, CSI and GSM. Interesting mix of features. Unfortunately for most of the world, GSM is pretty useless. Another yet to be released SBC is the Asus Tinkerboard. This one is claimed to have the same footprint as a Pi, yet contains the RK3288 Cortex A17 quad-core at 1.8 GHz, 2GB DDR3 RAM, SD, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Gigabit Ethernet, 4 USB 2.0 ports, and 4K resolution HDMI. They claim 2 times faster performance over the Pi 3 at the same power requirements. And Tindie has a couple of new STM32 boards. The RTL8710 module is a competitor to the ESP8266 module. Here's yet another development kit that contains a USB programmer and JTAG and GPIO breakouts. And once you've familiarized yourself with them, just buy the individual modules and program them using something like this. The Tolera Corp store on Tindie has released a bunch of new boards based on several STM32 variants, like the Butterfly based on the L433, the Ladybug which is based on the L432, and the Dragonfly which is based on the L476. All of them come with several sensor add-ons that can be stacked on top of the boards. For those retro gamers out there, here's a small PCB that will copy any Megadrive or Genesis cartridge. You can then take that image and use it in an emulator such as MAME. This 4-channel MOSFET contains a FAN 3224 gate driver. The good thing about this is that it allows very fast switching of the MOSFETs. It can switch a 4 amp load with rise and fall times as low as 10 nanoseconds. That's pretty fast PWM switching. Or if you're into model trains, this motor controller PiRyte can manage 8 channels. They are stackable and you can have up to 8 of these things. Requires just a 12 volt DC supply to run. This is a BeagleBone cape that gives you 8 power measurement channels. Each channel is capable of measuring up to 20 volts at 6 amps, accessible over the I2C bus, so really could be used on any I2C capable MCU. And from the major shop fronts? I mentioned this Kickstarter in one of my previous roundups. It's an ESP32 based board with MicroPython preloaded. It contains all the ESP32 goodness such as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios, dual MCUs, 24 GPIOs, and more memory than you can shake a stick at. The Lopi is a pretty cool radio module containing LoRa, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios. Pretty cool. It's essentially the same as a Wi-Fi, or Whippy, whatever you call it, but with an additional LoRa radio. Nice little unit if you want to be able to automatically switch between different wireless protocols. LiDARs are getting cheaper and cheaper. This unit is still expensive, but gives you a 10 meter detection range at 500 Hz in a small, lightweight package. Seed Studio also have a combined LoRaWAN and GPS module that also has 4 onboard Grove connectors. They also have the same unit, but without the embedded GPS module. Adafruit have a Pi Moroni automation hat designed for the Pi Zero, but can also be used on any Pi. gives you a bunch of 24 volt tolerant input and outputs, relays, and 24 volt ADC. Comes with the usual Adafruit supported Python libraries. They also have the AdaBox version 2, which is a feather-based robotics kit. Contains an Atmega 32U4 feather, motor driver add-on board, breadboard, and a few extras to get your robot moving. Something for the coming soon basket. Adafruit are taking expressions of interest for the new microbit. This is a small board aimed at STEM education that contains a Cortex M0 CPU, Bluetooth, LiPo battery, 6DoF IMU, a couple of buttons and LEDs, and an edge connector breaking out all the other GPIOs. It's a nice little unit that is gathering a lot of momentum. Over at DF Robot you can pick up a Grove-based MOSFET that can control a 36 volt 20 amp load and supports 3.3 and 5 volt logic levels. The load can be switched at up to 1 kHz, which is pretty good for a MOSFET. Or if you want a pretty accurate CO2 sensor, then this infrared-based sensor can detect CO2 emissions from 0 to 50,000 parts per million. You can pick up measurements from the UART port, and once the firmware has been updated, you'll also be able to use PWM or analog outputs. Meanwhile, over in China, you can pick up a 6DoF robotic arm fairly cheaply that's based on MG996R servos, or a 9DoF IMU with onboard STM32 MCU, good for running fusion algorithms entirely on the board. Or this pretty neat gesture sensor based off the APDS9960. We're starting to see a lot of these hitting the market, and can get the same from SparkFun, with Elecro being the cheapest. Analog Lamb have a cheap NRF 52832 Bluetooth module with all GPIOs accessible. And over at IC Station you can pick up a ridiculously cheap MP3 decoder with onboard SD slot and 2-watt speaker amplifier. Or if you want to play around with mains power communication, this board will allow you to inject data signals into any mains power point at 100 baud. Or there's a 4-channel relay board that can switch a 10 amp mains power load. This one is powered from mains, or this one is exactly the same but requires a 5 volt DC power supply. You can also pick up some cheap RTL 8710 based development modules, if you don't like the Tindie one I mentioned earlier, or just the basic modules themselves. Thanks for watching this week's Roundup. As always, check the description below and also on my website for links to all these products. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to hit like, and you can always follow, subscribe or support me by clicking on any of these icons. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.